Please, my lord. Members of the jury. Throughout this case, the defense has made no attempt to underestimate the gravity of the allegations contained in the letter addressed to Dr. Holt Matthews by the accused. The only possible justification for these allegations is the justification which we have pleaded, namely that they're true. Now, you've seen the accused, Rodney Maitland, and you may perhaps have formed the impression that he is, as my learned friend has said, a young man of uncertain temper, but that is not what he's on trial for, members of the jury. And what you must ask yourselves is not whether he is impulsive and hot-tempered, but whether he is a witness of the truth. Now, you've also heard from Dr. Holt Matthews and his family. You may think that we have here a very unusual situation, almost a Victorian situation of the domestic tyrant whose womenfolk stand so in awe of him that they're prepared to do his bidding in everything he asks. Now, what on this occasion did he ask of them? Here's a man who has planned a future career for his daughter. He imposed a discipline on this girl, determined that she would realize his ambitions. The doctor assured us that silver cups and the will to win were more important than his daughter's happiness with Rodney Maitland. Gail Holt Matthews courageously told this court that she wanted to have her child and that she loved the defendant. Yet when her father forbade this relationship, she was prepared to do his bidding. And you may well ask why such a man, after 20 years of practice, would jeopardize his reputation. Well, I suggest that Dr. Holt Matthews is so obsessed with his daughter and her future career in tennis that he would stop at nothing. Perhaps we should not make too much of what to us might look like callousness, or at least insensitivity on the doctor's part. Medical practitioners are no doubt far less squeamish than the rest of us, but it's a strange picture, isn't it? Here's the doctor, his daughter having just had a miscarriage, so he says, and he's sitting beside the examination couch, finishing off his dinner. Is that not consistent with Rodney Maitland's version of a later conversation when the doctor said, referring to the termination of the pregnancy, that little problem has been disposed of? As to Mrs. Holt Matthews, you may think she is a woman who has lived for some time under an almost intolerable strain. Now, we must sympathize with her as a person subject to alcoholism. But can we believe her account of the telephone conversation with Mr. Maitland? Here was a young man in a state of desperation, and even as it turned out, on the verge of suicide, who wanted quite naturally to talk to the girl he loved. He telephones her house, but he talks to the mother. They have a rambling conversation, and according to Mr. Maitland's evidence, the mother sounds drunk. Now, she says she cannot remember whether she was drunk or not. Yet she remembers with great clarity the precise words of the conversation. Members of the jury, ask yourselves just one question. Why were the surgery doors locked? Now, can you doubt that Mr. Maitland acted rightly in accusing Dr. Holt Matthews of this dreadful act? Here was a young man preparing to kill himself, remember. At such a moment, do you think a man more likely to tell lies or to tell the truth? Thank you, my lord.
Thank you, Mr. Elliot. Members of the jury, you have now heard all the evidence that is to be given in this case, and you have had the benefit of speeches from two very experienced and able counsel. It is now your duty to decide the facts of the case, and it is my duty to decide the law. As to the law, I can safely tell you that the allegation contained in the letter was libelous, unless it was true. Of course, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, It is for you to decide whether it was true or not. Secondly, I must direct you that the letter was published by virtue of the fact that it was written and addressed to Dr. Holt Matthews and left in a conspicuous place in the hotel room. Thirdly, that in law the libel was defamatory, in that it was calculated to bring the doctor into public ridicule, hatred, and contempt, and would damage him in his professional capacity. Now, members of the jury, the defendant admits publishing the document and admits that it is a defamatory libel, but he denies that he is guilty on the basis that he was justified in writing what he did. The issue, therefore, members of the jury, is this: did Dr. Holt Matthews perform an illegal abortion on his daughter on the night of June the 15th? Now, as to this question, the defense must prove beyond reasonable doubt that the doctor did do such a thing. And you must acquit the defendant if you are sure that the doctor did such an operation. And conversely, you must convict the defendant if you are not sure that the doctor did it. And that, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is the test. I turn now to the facts of the case. You have heard from the doctor how Gail fell down in a faint in her bedroom and cut her head as she fell, how he carried her to his surgery and there dressed the wounds on her forehead, and later, in his own words, dealt with the miscarriage. He denied that there had been an abortion. 2 weeks later, on June the 29th, the defendant came to the house, and here there is a conflict of evidence on what took place. You heard the doctor say in evidence that he told the defendant that that little problem has been settled by an act of God. The defendant, however, says that the words used by the doctor were, that little problem has been disposed of. Now, if you accept the latter statement as correct, you may think that the words are capable of bearing the meaning that an abortion had taken place. Now, in conclusion, members of the jury, I need only say again that if you are convinced of the truth of the allegation made by the defendant, then you must find him not guilty. But if, on the other hand, you find that the termination of Gail's pregnancy was caused by a miscarriage resulting from her fall, then you must bring in a verdict of guilty. Now, members of the jury, will you kindly retire and consider your verdict?
All stand. Will the foreman please stand? Just to answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the accused, Rodney James Maitland, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
And that is the verdict of you all?
Yes.
Very well. Will you sit down?
Rodney Maitland was fined £1,000 by Mr. Justice Waddington, as well as being ordered to pay the prosecution's costs.